So if spirituality is really just about practicing presence, like you said, then like what about all this other stuff that I see people doing in the spiritual community? Let me break it down for you. So first up, we've got metaphysics, which can be defined as the studies and practices which cannot be understood through objective studies of material reality or the posited reality outside of human sense perception. So basically, this is using your mind to interpret reality which is beyond that of the physical senses, right? So this is going to be any kind of psychic work, any kind of mediumship work, any kind of divination, tarot, things of that nature. And then next up, we've got quantum physics, which is the study of quanta or quantum. Quanta is the plural version of quantum. So quantum is defined as the smallest discrete unit of a phenomenon. This is typically used in energy. For example, a quantum of light is a photon, and a quantum of electricity is an electron. You can also think of it as a discrete quantity of energy, which is proportional in magnitude to the frequency of the radiation it represents, which is all a bunch of fancy words to basically just say that this is the study of particles at the very smallest level. And when you're using it in terms of energy work, this is going to include practices like Reiki, sound healing, tuning forks, anything that deals with manipulating energy or manipulating frequency, because what you're really doing is moving around particles at the subatomic level or at the quantum level. Right, so metaphysics and quantum physics are not spirituality. If you recall, spirituality is all about detaching from the mind and simply existing in pure observation and awareness, whereas metaphysics and quantum physics are the practice and study of using your mind to interpret non-physical reality. All right, guys, so you don't have to practice any of that other stuff in order to be a spiritual person. The reason that quantum physics, metaphysics, and spirituality tend to get conflated with each other is, well, it's really one of two things. The first thing being that they are all dealing with things outside of the so-called 3D reality, or as I like to call it, the D that you can see, right? So even quantum physics, even though it is quantifiably measurable, you cannot physically touch energy with your human hands. You can't physically see it with your human eyes, hear it with your human ears, taste it with your human tongue. I'm missing a sense here, aren't I? Smell it. Smell it with your human nose, right? So that's reason number one. They're all dealing with things outside of the 3D reality. The second reason is that if you look at your generalized stereotyped belief system groups, you've essentially got scientific group, religious group, spiritual group, and the atheist, right? So scientists, stereotypically, they're going to dismiss the majority of this kind of stuff because it is not quantifiably measurable. The religious community historically has dismissed it as evil, satanic, etc. And the atheists, well, in order for this stuff to work, psychic work, tarot, all that kind of stuff, you have to believe there's some kind of higher infinite intelligence that you're tapping into to get this information. So that rules out the atheists who don't believe in any kind of higher power. So the only generalized stereotype community you have left is the so-called spiritual community who's going to accept and practice this kind of stuff. However, again, you don't have to practice any of that stuff to be spiritual. In fact, some of the most spiritual people that I know don't practice any of that stuff. They're just extremely present and extremely kind, high integrity individuals. And on the flip side of that, I know some people who have read all the books. They do meditations in order to astral project and see colors, right? And they're into all the different psychic arts. And they're some of the biggest jerks that I know. They are certainly not acting from a place of love and acceptance. So the best way to really measure a person's level of spirituality is not by how many books they've read or how many meditations that they do or how many psychic practices they participate in. It is to look at their level of integrity. However, I will tell you guys that the more spiritual you are, the better these metaphysics and quantum physics practices are going to work for you. Why? Well, first reason is the more in tune you are with the truth of yourself as something more than human, as a creative power and spiritual being, then the more confidence you're going to have in your abilities to tap into these things that are outside of the stereotyped human limitations, right? Reason number two is that the more aware you are of yourself, the more practiced you are in observing your own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and energy, then the more aware you will be when you are experiencing thoughts, emotions, feelings, and energy which are not your own. And then the third reason being the more present you're able to be within your own body, the more clearly you will be able to perceive your intuition or your nervous system flagging you that something is up. All right, guys, so I hope that cleared up any confusion you might have had on these topics. I know that they're kind of abstract and they can get really complicated. They get mixed in together all the time. So just a quick recap, spirituality is the art of detaching from your mind in order to get in touch with the truth of who you are from a state of observation and awareness, with that truth being that you are a creative power, spiritual being made of pure love. Whereas metaphysics and quantum physics requires using your mind in order to interpret, manipulate, or communicate energies and other levels of consciousness. So, as such, they are neither mutually inclusive or exclusive. You can be a very spiritual person and never touch metaphysics or quantum physics in your life. There are people who do those practices that are not spiritual at all. However, the more quote-unquote spiritual you are, the better those practices are going to work for you. So, I hope that makes sense. Thank you all so much for listening. I love you all. Have a great day or a great night.